So let's bring it back to the topic of our episode today, which is how companies in asset-heavy sectors can become profitable.
If there's one word that really describes or captures what it means to achieve profitability as a startup, that one word is discipline.
Are there things to keep in mind for an asset-heavy company looking to raise equity?
One of them is you have to provide a credible path to scaling without equity. And then your ability to raise funding depends also on your credibility. We unlocked over $30 million worth of fleet financing that was driven by strategic OEM partnerships, not by us raising debt.
And I see from your t-shirt, Yamaha, I guess must have given you. Let's repeat that for the audience.
Okay.
An average entrepreneur in a great market would outperform an excellent entrepreneur in a mediocre market. So why are we building here? Welcome to Periscope, the podcast that allows founders see what they may not already know. As you build that amazing idea from 0 to 100, all the topics you like to learn on finance, fundraising, marketing, tech, all the messy bits on regulation, legal, here is where you will learn all about it. My name is Lola and I'm the host of the show today. And with me, I have Adetayo Bamiduro. It's a pleasure to have you.
Nice to be here.
You want to introduce yourself briefly, Tayo?
Yeah, sure. My name is Adetayo Bamiduro, co-founder and CEO at Max. Max is a company that's transforming how mobility works.
We all know Max, but feel free to say a few more words about it.
All right, specifically focused on drivers, especially 2- and 3-wheeler gig drivers, providing them with the vehicles that they need to make money. We've been focused on electric vehicles more recently, building out the charging stations that drivers need to be able to get their EVs working. But pretty much it's Max is driving financial inclusion in the mobility space, building out elaborate proprietary IoT technology, credit decision engines, and all the stuff required to provide vehicles and credit and provide all the support that drivers need to be successful. I've been doing this for a couple of years with my co-founder, Chinedu. We started the company together as grad students back at MIT. And it's been 10 years. We're excited about
Congratulations.
The journey we've been on, and then definitely looking forward to the future.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, we all know Max for different reasons.
Fair enough.
But the one thing that stands out is that yellow color. And I'm sure there's a story behind the yellow color.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
Share with us.
I think I remember back in 2015 when we were trying to figure out like the right brand. So we hired this design expert back in the States in New York, and he was giving us some ideas around, okay, how do we create a brand that stands out? What do we do with colors? I mean, I'm like almost colorblind. And Chinedu is not particularly a design person either in that sense. But this guy came up with some fantastic ideas and recommendations. And, he asked us a bunch of questions about what the objective of the company is. We explained, we're empowering people and all of that. And then he had this concept of, okay, sounds like you're bringing like lights to people's lives. And the sun, represents that. And the sun is yellow, right? So one thing led to another, the yellow color came forth, and then the brand is what it is today.
And here we are with the yellow color.
Yes.
Because typically you would expect green, right? You'd expect more earth green colors for mobility, type companies.
Well, fair enough, yeah. Particularly, with the fact that we've gone fully electric. But at the very beginning, we were not 100% electric, right? So then the green thing wasn't necessarily front and center. But even with the work we're doing with electrification now, yellow is still like relevant, right? I like to say we were yellow before MTN was yellow. MTN might have one or two things to say about that, but yeah, the yellow color is still pretty nice, stands out. Yeah, we like it.
Yeah, and we like it too. But what I also really like about your background, Tayo, is the fact that it hasn't been a linear path by any stretch.
No, it hasn't.
You're a computer scientist by training. You've worked in product, you've worked in business analytics.
Yes.
You've worked across a range of sectors.
Correct. Yeah.
And you are now the CEO of a logistics green EV business,
Correct.
mobility business, I think might be the more appropriate term. Tell us how that non-linear journey has contributed to your success today.
Yeah, I mean, I could go all the way back and sort of summarize it. I think growing up, both my parents had a lot of influence on me. My mom is much more entrepreneurial, social advocate. She was a union leader, she was a journalist, worked in journalism for many years. And then my dad is an academic, right? Focused on economics, statistics, so he's very numbers driven. So I got like the numbers, quantitative gift from him, if you call it a gift, I don't know. And then I got the interest in like entrepreneurship and creating solutions, and also trying to create opportunities and fight for justice and all of that from my mom. So those two things sort of like fused in me. And I think growing up, I was fascinated with computers. Then Macintosh, Microsoft were all the rage, and all the amazing things that were going on in the 90s. If you remember Y2K bug as well, we thought the world was going to end. Yeah. So a lot of passion for technology, and at some point that the passion for tech plus the interest in like creating social opportunities and economic opportunities that provide liberation for people on the continent sort of like fused into one. But before Max, obviously, I worked in a bunch of sectors. I did product management. I did e-commerce as well. I did energy. I did oil and gas. And then at some point, I sort of like got tired of. I think it was when I was in oil and gas, because I went in there obviously, because back then that's like where most people wanted to.
That's where you go to earn a good living, right? A good salary.
Nigeria. Things have of course since changed.
Yeah.
But back then, yeah, and I got in and it was good for the first couple of years. But eventually, I was like, okay, this is really what I want to do, right? I wanted to do something a bit more meaningful that connected with my core tech for good mission, right? But at the same time, I also realized that I wanted a bit more exposure. I wanted to learn at the global level. Not like I wasn't getting really good experience in Nigeria, but I wanted something a bit more global, right, in nature. So thankfully, I got into Sloan at MIT, which was a completely transformational experience for me. I guess the first day in class, a bunch of other classmates were introducing themselves. And someone would say, "Oh, I worked at Boeing before coming here, and I helped, design the 787 engine." Someone else would say, "I helped launch, a rocket into space that took like 20 satellites into orbit." And you're hearing all this, all these things.
It's almost my turn. It's almost my turn.
I was like, okay, what did I say, right? But that really challenged me. I think what was also even more fascinating for me was meeting with all these amazing guys from around the world, by the way, even including like ex-military folks who had served in Iraq, right? And had been in the heat of fire in the war zone before coming to business school. So you just had a really, really diverse learning environment and incredible experiences that people had before coming in there. But I think what was really different, if I'm being very honest, and I think I should be honest here, is the level of humility and simplicity that I saw in all the guys that were there. Guys and girls that were there. Extremely accomplished, extremely talented, and extremely gifted people. At the same time, extremely down to earth, very open, very accessible, very willing to help, very willing to learn, which isn't something that I'd seen a lot of, right, in my career experience. Where once you get a bit successful, you kind of like there's a bit of a chip on your shoulder.
You go buy the G-Wagon.
Exactly, right? So I think that humility, and then building on top of that, a lot of experiences we had with innovators who have become very successful in the US economy, folks like Peter Thiel and so on. Who would then come back to...
So you got to meet Peter Thiel?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. Fantastic.
These guys would come back to campus to
Sloan,
talk.
Yeah.
And you would interact with them, very easily. I mean, I don't know, they might have security, but you wouldn't see any of the security guys.
Right.
Right?
Like in some markets where they actually want to show that.
So the level of, accessibility that we had, It was just completely transformational, right? It does something to you that, okay, you can really build something, or life is fundamentally about using your talents to create things that are very transformational, while at the same time, staying grounded and staying very humble about it. So yeah, that was, I think, a turning point for me, is that background of being curious, wanting to do something with technology, wanting to help drive social impact. I think at the very beginning, I did have interest as well in, let's get into government and change things, and all of that. Of course, I know better now. Nothing wrong with going into government. But I did realize that if I really wanted to drive transformation, that was the opportunity that technology provided, is, because, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, if you really wanted to deliver large scale change, the only way you could really think about doing that was to go into governance.
Into government, right? Yeah.
But technology completely transformed how that works. Is with your laptop and a computer, you could build something that completely transforms
millions. Yeah.
Billions of people
Transform
globally,
the industry.
Right? And you never had to run for office or get into the government house. And I took that opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. There's a lot to unpack on that.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to hearing more, to really deep dive into your experience at MIT and how that has transformed your journey.
Okay, sure.
So guys, our topic for today is how to raise financing in an asset-heavy industry. Max recently raised $24 million.
Okay. Yeah.
And we would unpack that as well.
Okay.
And can't wait to deep dive into that conversation with you, Tayo, to learn from your wealth of wisdom, to advise and to educate and to transfer knowledge, really, to our audience today. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And look forward to deep diving even further.
Are you raising the right kind of funding, or are you taking what's available?
Are you raising the right kind of funding for your business? Guys, this is so key for your success, and can't wait to unpack this with Tayo. Join us and let's get started. Cascador is our partner making today's conversation possible. If you are a mid-stage founder, then Cascador is for you. It's an intensive program that combines education, leadership, mentorship, and access to a $2 million catalytic fund to allow you scale your business. Whether you're looking to refine your leadership, pressure test your ideas, or get connected to a community of advisors, Cascador is the place to allow you to do that. Apply for the next Cascador program at cascador.org. So our topic today is how capital-intensive companies can turn a profit. And we are here to learn from Adetayo Bamiduro, co-founder and CEO of Max, because you've done that successfully. Yeah. You've taken Max over the last 10 years and made it a profitable business. Yeah. And recently raised $24 million to continue your growth trajectory. Yeah. So we will get to that conversation. But before we do, I want to pick it up from where we left off at the intro around your journey, your experience in grad school, why you chose MIT versus other options, either other options outside Nigeria or even options in Nigeria, right? And how that has essentially shaped your trajectory so far.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I guess building on some of the points we discussed earlier around why I ultimately chose Sloan, the Sloan School at MIT. I had a few options that I did look at. HBS obviously was there, Stanford was there.
Okay, so you turned down HBS and Stanford?
No, I didn't get HBS, but I didn't focus so much on HBS as well.
Okay.
I focused most of my energy on Stanford and on MIT.
Okay.
Right. I did get MIT eventually, which is what I took. But the reason why I focus on those two options, out of the other options like Chicago Booth, what's it called now? I've forgotten a lot of those names. Kellogg, Northwestern as well, and so on. I wanted something that had a strong tech heritage, right? I also wanted a place that was renowned for students building out of school. Right? At HBS had a much stronger reputation for folks like going into finance or taking on general management type roles, right?
Consulting
business, as well.
Banking,
and the whole typical career path for MBA grads. But Sloan and Stanford had alums who were a bit more focused on building core technology businesses, right? So that was like super important for me. The other reason also was I was also
So
looking
you already
for...
knew going in that you wanted to build a tech business.
Yes, I did.
So you didn't go to business school for the network, for the brand, for the stamp. You went in knowing, look, my objective here is to gather knowledge, insight, etc., to allow me effectively build a tech business. Did you have that clarity of thought going in?
I knew I wanted to build a tech company, right? That was clear even before I went into business school, right?
Now, what drove that? So let's just roll it back 2 years. What drove that decision or that desire, that ambition to build a tech company? Because you were working in large companies, oil and gas, e-commerce, etc.
I mean, I would say, some of it is nature, some of it is like nurture, right? Some of it is just observing how the world was evolving back then and the fact that technology was at the forefront of transformation, right? And I think in Nigeria I had seen the telco, you could call it the telco revolution, but it's fundamentally a technology revolution, right? That made, phone calls, etc., accessible to the entire population almost overnight, right? With the infrastructure rollouts from folks like MTN and Econet Wireless, as they were called back then, and Glo eventually stepped in.
I remember Econet. Yeah. And prior to that, Zain. I don't know if you remember Zain.
Yes, exactly. So I knew there was, there were other, that same level of scale and transformation that came from telcos was going to be replicated in other sectors, right? In mobility, in payments, in energy, and so on. I wasn't 100% clear on which of those sectors I was going to focus on back then, but I knew I would have clarity once I went to business school and I, had the opportunity to interact with female founders in the States. But I knew I wanted to do something in tech. It wasn't very clear yet before I went to the business school. But also I was deliberate about what sort of business school would give me the opportunity to sort of hone in on that, but also to acquire talent, right? So I think one of the really exciting things about the MIT program is the business school isn't separate from the rest of campus or the rest of the other schools. They all are fully integrated. So you could easily, as a grad student or as an MBA student, take classes in engineering
and other
build
faculties,
friendships and relationships there, and then convince them to join your startup team on campus, right? So I got a ton. I think initially our team we had about 5 or 6 other people working with us.
Interesting.
Yeah, while we're working on the Max idea.
Yeah, of course. Just building
for passion and energy and all that.
And let's figure out what we can make.
Exactly, and I knew that was available on campus. And then MIT also had tons of entrepreneurship programs and competitions. I mean, there was we were having 2, 3, 4 competitions every week where you would pitch your idea and you could win. Some you could win $2,000 or $5,000. Some were as high as $100,000. That's the MIT 100K, if you've heard about it, right? So there are tons of opportunities to really hone in. And then the classes as well. MIT has something called the Media Lab, which is this institution that focuses on real cutting edge innovation, robotics, etc. And out of the Media Lab, there are some courses that focused on innovation in frontier and emerging markets. So I took a bunch of classes at the Media Lab. You got the opportunity to work with folks like Sandy Pentland, amazing people who built and invented, all sorts of incredible technologies over the last couple of decades. So beyond the MIT Sloan program itself, where there was a ton of other resources on campus, and then back then, as it was called, you had the MIT Legatum Center, which also focused on
shut down.
So the center still runs, but it
so.
has a different sponsor now.
Okay,
it's called the Cool Sharper Center now.
Okay,
because the headline sponsor has changed from the Legatum Institute. But yeah, you had also
money. So that's when you have enough money to change the name of an MIT program to your own name.
Yeah, that's money talking for real. So there was just all sorts of initiatives, competitions, institutes on campus that it's the program and the institution is designed to accelerate innovation, right? Everything around you is pushing you to innovate, right? And everyone is doing something. We also have something called the Venture Mentoring Service, where if you're working on an idea And all of this were almost like completely free of charge. And not some, all of this was free of charge, right?
They even win money. You could win.
You could
prizes.
win money, you could win
Yes.
prizes, right?
Oh.
So it was a super electric community, and if you come in without having clarity on exactly what you want to do, 2 years in, you would have absolute clarity on what you wanted to do. Right? So that was I think, and I knew that going in, right? Because the reputation was really strong. I'd spoken to a few alums who are Africans who had gone into the program and had come out and had incredible things to say. So I think that was the precursor before I then said, okay, you know what, this is the institution I really want to focus on.
Yeah. Now, when I talk to individuals, professionals considering business school, the concern or almost a golden handcuff type situation is you get into this prestigious school, so you have to take loans oftentimes to pay it off. And what that then means is any ambition to come back to Nigeria to build becomes quite difficult because you have to pay back those loans. So Microsoft dangling an offer letter or McKinsey saying move to our New York office becomes quite attractive.
Yes, it does.
So I'm curious to know how, because it seemed you had clarity on coming back to build, right? Going in, you knew you were there for 2 years and your plan was to come back home.
Yes.
So how did you sort of balance that dilemma?
There's going into business school, taking on, I don't know, depending on what school and I did have scholarships. I had partial scholarships, by the way, but still, I think I racked up about $140,000 in student loans, right?
$140,000.
Yes, correct. If you go work for a startup, like startup right after business school, right, and you don't have have savings or a means to actually pay off those loans, right? Like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You have to be crazy. Or you are, you're crazy, right?
That's another option. Or you have a trust fund.
No, I didn't have
a rich dad.
I didn't have a trust fund, right? I didn't have a trust fund.
If you had a rich dad or a trust fund,
you can do that.
Then you can do that.
Yeah. I didn't have a trust fund. But I would say that, it's high risk, but also, I would also say maybe a little bit of your higher confidence as well. Because also, what you sort of like learned, and I would say would sort of learn this after the fact, is if you actually try to build a company and innovate from the ground up, right, and it fails, companies will snap you up very quickly. So the decision to going into business school, more often than not, unless you have a trust fund or huge savings somewhere, you have to take on student loans, right? And this can range anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. So making a decision to then go work for a startup right out of business school is kind of risky, right? Which is what I and Chinedu did. But also it's, and this is hindsight, it's also like one of the best ways to actually accelerate your career, even if you're not successful building a startup, right? Because it's compressed learning. Try to build a venture.
Attractive even to the large
100%,
employers.
100%.
Yeah.
That's why companies do M&A all the time. Why questions? Why don't they hire people to come build, right? Because it's sort of talent that's needed to accelerate innovation more often than not. They're not like folks sitting around looking for work, right?
Right.
They're building stuff somewhere.
Right, on their own.
On their
having
own.
the initiative to go
Absolutely,
do it.
100%. And then you try and convince them.
Yeah.
I've had to do that a few times as well.
So you worked for a startup in the US then, or after MIT, what was the next?
Oh, no, it
journey?
was Max. It was Max.
It was Max right away.
It was Max right away.
So it wasn't even working for a startup.
No, it wasn't.
Because even then you have a paycheck.
Yeah. So
even if it's small.
Even if it's small, you have a paycheck working for a startup.
Yes.
In my case and Chinedu's case, was actually building the startup from right out of business
school with all those loans behind you.
Tell me about it. So we started the journey not very early. From second year, we were applying for funding. We were applying into accelerator programs.
So Max began while you were still at MIT?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it did. We were a team of 7 people, I think I mentioned that earlier. As we approached, graduation, right, everyone sort of started dropping off. And then ultimately it was just me and Chinedu from a team of 7, who got whittled down to a team of just 2 people, which is fine. As you rightly said, at some point, folks were like, oh, wow, I've got that $200,000 student loan looking at me. and I've got this Microsoft offer, this Google offer, this Facebook offer. It's time to go. I'll figure out the venture building dream later
After.
on. Right, that's what a lot of people said. And I mean, no hard feelings. We continued building. But good thing for us was right after we graduated I think I was in June, in July, we got accepted into the Techstars program.
Okay.
In New York. And the Techstars program in New York.
You were the first Nigerian
startup to get into the New York Techstars New York. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. It was really amazing. It was fascinating. So that was helpful because we knew that would come with 120K in investments, right, in funding. So obviously we got that funding, which was super important at the early phase. And then got a bunch of angel investors. All of them never been to Nigeria. In fact, most of them never been to Africa before. Which then goes back to the point I made around the point earlier. The question you asked earlier around, okay, why did I choose a business? Why did I choose MIT Sloan? But I think beyond that is why did I choose a B school in the US, right? And I want to talk about that now. It's because the US has a very strong innovation culture. Like it's the strongest in the world. And a very strong risk-taking culture as well. So, like, where else in the world would you like try to build something not for the US market? And then you have, Americans hearing your story.
And still willing to write.
Never been to Africa before, have no clue what it's like. Just believe in the story and say, I'm going to give you $50,000. I'm going to give you $100,000, right? Like, and we didn't have one or two of those. So even for us, it was like, wow, like this is
that must have felt
incredible.
surreal, right? Because fundraising is tough, whatever stage you're at.
Yes, it is hard.
So having someone who has that conviction at a very early idea stage,
it's incredible.
Yes,
it's incredible.
Must just have been just empowering
100%
to you as well.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. So I mean, you also like when you're on the MIT campus, you feel like you can do anything. Like you just feel like whatever I want to do, I can do, right? But Techstars also took things to the next level because business school was great. MIT is a really fascinating environment. But Techstars is an accelerator program that's focused on venture building. So getting in there, working with folks like Alex Isco, talking to folks like Brad Feld, like David Cohen and all the other guys, Mark Solon and all the amazing David Brown and all the incredible folks who built Techstars from the ground up in itself was incredible, right? And then part of the Techstars program is you get to talk to mentors. There's something called Mentor Madness, which happens in like the first 2 weeks of the program, where on a daily basis you're pitching your company to about 5 to 10 mentors.
On a daily basis?
Yes. And
for 3 weeks?
For about 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks?
Yes, I think about 2 weeks then. So at the end of Mentor Madness, you would have pitched your company to, I don't know, maybe 100 mentors or something like that. Something ridiculous. And you would keep the exact same pitch. You would improve the pitch over time, but you give the exact same pitch and you get feedback. And that's when I learned how to really, really pitch, right? Because you do it, you keep doing it, you keep improving on it, and then it becomes second nature, right? And that's another thing as well. I think, my background growing up in Nigeria and all that, it's not second nature, it's not emphasized to like learn how to sell yourself or your ideas.
It's the opposite,
actually. It's actually the
right?
opposite.
We are trained to be humble
and all that, and to be very conservative and all that. But here, you're pitching, you're hearing other people pitch, and how do I explain this? You're hearing people pitch, and you're like, wow, like they're pitching like they've built a massive company already,
right?
And then you're like,
slight exaggeration,
right? And you're like, wow, And then on the one hand, I think when it became very interesting for us was so at some point we thought, okay, is this like not like massaging the truth a little bit, or is this not completely false, or what's going on here? And we then recognized later on that the way venture builders and investors in America think is the founder has to sort of like live in their future reality now and be able to talk,
you have to
speak to it. You have to believe it, right? So apparently it's being able to like speak very confidently about like what you're trying to build and demonstrate so much conviction in itself is an indication that I should back you. That's actually how early stage investors think. Because early stage investors know that there's not much. It's called early stage for a reason, right? So what they're really betting on is the quality of the founder and the idea and its potential. And of course, they know that 80-90% of the ideas are going to fail. Like that's how it works. But one of the most important, data points for them is the level of conviction and also the credibility that the founder has, right? And we went through, an incredible learning experience, just pitching and getting feedback and talking to incredible people who have built successful businesses. So I would say in the 3 months, in 3 months of Techstars, right? Because it's very focused learning, right? We learned a lot more about how to build a venture than 2 years, than my 2 MBA program.
Even at MIT, that was still very much focused on innovation and entrepreneurship and technology.
Because MIT is still fundamentally an academic environment. It's still an institution, right? Or no matter how you slice it. At Techstars, you are seeing all sorts of people, all sorts of backgrounds, and you're seeing people who all are focused on just one thing, building a venture from the ground up, right? And the focus is on, so it's also a slightly different way of thinking about innovation. At MIT, there's a lot of focus on like technology innovation, right? At Techstars,
there's a business lens.
There's a strong business lens and a strong focus on the user, which is, right, no matter how fascinating what you've built is, if people are not buying it and they're not keen about it, they're not willing to pay for it, it doesn't matter. And also there's a focus on very aggressive and very rapid experimentation and very cheap experimentation too, right? So I remember Alex would tell us stuff like, the first version of your product should be just SMS messages, right? You shouldn't even build mock-ups. Just like, don't spend too much time doing all of that. Because building should be after you've figured out that there's a market here. So discovering that there's a real meaningful market that's scalable precedes, investing in the technology infrastructure to support.
Do you think that every single problem or product or business idea can be broken down into a true basic cheap MVP? Or do you think that there is some level or there's some type or some class of product that actually you have to spend a little bit more money to do a mock-up, right? You have to spend a little bit more resources to put things together, right? And it can't always be rudimentary all the way down to just SMS, WhatsApp to actually do the initial test. Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's nuance and there are differences or there are unique scenarios. If you're trying to build SpaceX, right? You want to launch a rocket into space, you have to launch it.
You have to launch it, right? To actually get,
It is what it is. So for that, the funding required to get that off of the ground is huge, right? But also, if you're trying to build a rocket company, you either already have credibility as a, renowned, successful rocket scientist. So what I would pin this to is fundamentally building a mock-up and an MVP in itself, how much funding you need depends on what problem you're trying to solve. And then your ability to raise funding depends also on your credibility. So if you're highly credible, even if it's day one of building your product, right, or experimenting, and you have a really strong, exceptional reputation, you can raise 100 million. You get the funding.
That's happened recently, right? Isn't it Mira, the lady from OpenAI?
Yes.
That raised billions without even an idea.
Exactly. So capital chases, credibility and talent, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty well established.
What was the initial idea for Max when you launched at MIT, and how has that evolved over time? And talk us through how Chinedu got involved and how that relationship has also evolved over time.
Sure. Remember, we went back to 2013, 2014. What was going on? What was the technology landscape like globally and also in Africa, right? That was when you had the likes of Iroko, Jumia, Konga. So you had the e-commerce revolution that was starting to pick up. Amazon was on a tear. Alibaba was on a roll back then. Then add to that, Uber and Lyft were also on the ascendancy, right? So you had e-commerce, and logistics, you had ride-hailing, all of them coming of age and really taking off. So it was within that context that I and Chindu realized, okay, you know what? Mobility is broken in Africa and Nigeria as well, right? We have to figure out a way to solve this using an app, right? So we'll bring all drivers online, we'll provide them with smartphones to allow them to be able to do e-commerce deliveries.
And it was all drivers across different types of vehicles, or it was always two-wheelers?
Fantastic. It was ultimately going to be all of the categories.
Okay.
But we then asked ourselves and said, okay, which one would give us the largest market opportunity from day one? It was two-wheelers. So we decided to focus on motorcycles, right? So yeah, it was, if you think about the context, as I mentioned, mobility was all the rage, online deliveries, e-commerce, etc., connecting, supply and demand using an app, and a bunch of service providers and gig drivers was really what the business model was at the very inception. It was later on that we then crystallized it to say, okay, we're trying to build a fantastic business model here, but the infrastructure actually doesn't exist, right? There's a lot of drivers, but they don't have good vehicles. They don't have motorcycles. They can't afford one. They can't finance one. They don't have wallets. There's no, organized maintenance products for them. There's no way to do credit checks and verification on them. Oh, they're excluded from the formal financial system. And then over time, it started unearthing all the gaps that we weren't initially aware of at the very beginning. And then, of course, refocused the company on addressing the core infrastructure gaps. Because we then realized, okay, well, if the reason why Uber exists in the US is because, someone else had built Google Maps, there was mapping technology already. Someone else had built like Visa, MasterCard, there was digital payments technology already and cards, and they worked, right? There was massive adoption.
Roads, right? Somebody has actually
there is access to
the highways and roads.
Vehicle financing and leasing. Infrastructure exists.
Yeah.
Right. So of course, it took a while for us to fully think about that. Initially, we were also thinking we could replicate some of the innovations we had seen in other markets directly into Africa, right?
Okay.
But of course, once you're 1-2 years in, you realize that, okay.
That, you can't copy and paste.
No, you can absolutely not copy and paste. And then that was when the business model started evolving.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fantastic. And now it's changed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it has.
And it's interesting because you had mentioned early businesses, Iroko, Conga.
Yeah.
Conga, I guess, manages some, warehousing.
Yes.
There's some sort of infrastructure involved.
Yes.
But a lot of those companies were purely tech businesses.
Yep.
Even Uber is purely tech business. They don't own any cars.
Yeah.
They don't own any of the assets.
Yeah.
Right. But then you chose to go into a space where, or maybe you evolved into that space where you're really getting beyond just the tech into the actual asset management.
Yes, correct.
Talk us through that journey and how that has shaped the way you have managed Max over the years.
Yeah, great. So I think we did, have quite some interesting conversations around asset light versus asset heavy back in the day. And I don't know if you heard some of the terms that were used back then, like, Airbnb is the largest hotel company in the world, but they don't own a single hotel room. Uber is the largest mobility company in the world. They don't own a single taxi, and on and on, right? But of course, it's a lot more nuanced than that. So if you pick Uber as an example, at some point, obviously, you then saw that Uber hit a ceiling in many of the markets, and the only way they could continue to scale was to then creatively figure out ways to add vehicles and assets to their networks.
To the Move partnership.
The Move partnership,
yeah,
for example, and they have similar partnerships like that across markets around the world. And if you look at the Amazon story as well, purely e-commerce that was supposed to be asset light, but eventually started owning and buying up distribution centers and warehouses globally, shipping lanes, all sorts, right? I think that whole asset light thing made sense till around 2019, 2020, where I think operators and also investors began to realize that, if we're really going to unlock these opportunities at scale and hit our highest potential, right? If the infrastructure isn't there, it has to be built. And someone has to fund it, right? So I think the whole asset light thing was around for a while, but around the turn of the decade, around 2020 thereabout, I think that went down the drain and everybody realized, okay, you know what? We have to do this. So if you also look at Africa since then, many of the companies that have fundraised in the last 4 to 5 years building some kind of infrastructure, right? Whether it's even digital infrastructure itself is a lot of money, right? You have to invest to build that up, right?
Whether it's easier, you would say, though, right, than physical infrastructure where you're dealing with also the human factor and.
I would say that in our experience, I mean, I'll say maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would easily say, mobility is really hard. It's tough. It's unique. It's not like payments, etc. I'm not quick to say that anymore because every single like business has its own unique dynamics and challenges, right? But what we've also learned is where there is an infrastructure, if you actually invest time and energy and effort to build it, right, it then actually becomes a moat and a source of competitive advantage for you. And I'll tell you, for example, what we've done with our movement from ICE engines to electric. With electric vehicles, we started seeing a lot more competition in the two-wheeler space. A lot more players started entering into the EV, into the ICE engine finance space, without necessarily having to build all the capabilities that we had built. And then we asked ourselves and said, okay, it's kind of like, think about like the way an eagle thinks. If it's flying and it sees other birds like flying at its level, it's like, okay, let me fly higher, right? Because it can, right? And then it flies a lot higher and nobody else can like, fly at that height. So they just like stay at their own level. It's also the way you think about, maintaining medium to long-term competitive advantage in a space is, yes, we all try to minimize the amount of complexity that we take on, but ultimately what guarantees long-term competitive advantage is the amount of complexity that you've solved.
That you've solved for.
So if you look at...
As long as you can, on some level, protect others from simply accessing and taking advantage of that. If
Absolutely.
Not, you build for others.
If not, you build for others.
Yeah.
So if you look at EVs, in our own case, right, it's much more complex. It's difficult to copy. There's a lot of innovation that's gone into like your battery chemistry, your electric motor specification, your electric controller specifications, your IoT infrastructure, and all of that. Initially, it's slower, right? Because you're building some of that infrastructure. But the moment you've built it and it genuinely delivers lower cost and better experience to your customers. Because there's no point innovating and doing all sorts if
it's not fun.
It's not valuable to the customer.
Viable, yeah.
Yeah, from the customer's viewpoint, not from our own viewpoint.
Yeah.
So we proved that, right? We saw very strong retention, very strong portfolio performance with EVs. And then we doubled down on the infrastructure and completely said, we're not dependent on engines anymore.
And are those EV stations exclusive to Max drivers, or you've opened that up to third parties, almost to become a platform that others can then ride on?
So it's going through multiple phases. The phase that we're at right now, Max has built its own network of stations. Okay. Those stations are exclusive to Max.
Which cities?
So Lagos and Accra.
And Accra, okay.
Right, we built one or two outside of Lagos and Accra. We also have partner stations, partners who've invested purely in battery substations that are providing services to Max.
Okay.
And those partners also service other customers. But for the partners that we work with today, like I'd say 85 to 90% of their business is from Max anyway, right? But to your question, yes, the stations that we are building and rolling out are exclusively to serve the Max network, not for any other players. But I think the point is, when you build all these capabilities, right, it's difficult for someone else to copy you. But also, it's also important for you to scale up and ramp up aggressively very, very quickly. So in our case, for example, we had tested about, as at the beginning of last year, we had tested about 1,200 electric motorcycles historically across Nigeria and Ghana. And then in the first quarter of last year, once we proved that the model works and a bunch of other proof points that we were looking for, we immediately placed an order with our manufacturers for 10,000 units.
Oh, wow. And you had the financing to do that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And we had to raise it.
We'll come back to that. Yeah.
But the reason we did that also is to the point you made is because we're going into this new space, we have to be dominant quickly. So we don't make everybody see the opportunity and then someone else comes and takes advantage of that.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to the topic of our episode today, which is how companies in asset-heavy sectors can become profitable. We know that it's a long journey.
It is.
For any business, it's a long journey, but probably even harder if you are truly asset heavy. Correct. So let's get some thoughts from you on how you thought about financing,
Okay.
right? At different stages of the business. What type made sense for you?
Okay.
How did you blend it for it to be, sort of efficient for Max? And what learnings could we take from your experience for our early stage founders looking to build in asset-heavy spaces?
I think, at the very early stage for every company, right, what you're fundamentally trying to raise is equity, right? Because at the early stage, you're still trying to prove an idea. You don't want to be raising debt, because debt has to be paid back.
And you don't even get debt at an early stage. You may not even have the option necessarily.
You are unlikely to get it at an early stage, very unlikely. But some people say, you know what, I don't want to give up equity in my company, blah, blah, blah. If I can get debt, let me get debt, right? It's a bad idea, really bad idea. So at the early stage, it's equity, even if it's asset heavy. It's equity you use to finance the first set of assets to actually prove, because what you're trying to do there is to prove that the model works. Because when you get to debt providers, they're looking for track record.
Are there things to keep in mind for an asset heavy company looking to raise equity? Because the reality is that investors still find it easier to invest in asset light or tech. Pure tech businesses versus asset-heavy businesses. Were there any learnings or tips or tricks that you used to convince your early investors, right, that actually made sense to invest in Max?
Yes, that's some pretty important things. One of them is you have to provide a credible path to scaling without equity.
Okay.
So if you're in an asset-heavy industry, investors want to understand that, okay, if this works, you will be able to unlock the debt that is needed to unlock the next level of scale.
Got it. Okay.
So that is important. You don't have to prove you have that debt, right, at the early stage, but you have to show that you understand the journey and how you will actually ultimately unlock the funding that's needed to scale. That's always super important. I think secondly is you have to prove that the product that you're building is truly actually the future, and that there's going to be like sustained,
how do you prove
massive demand.
So how did you know that EV will catch on? I mean, obviously there's a conviction that petrol is not sustainable, subsidy may get removed, which it has, right? To your favor. But you often don't know that 100% going in. So how do you sort of foresee that this business model where we're investing heavily in this asset actually will pay off, knowing all the complexity and risk that you have to manage within this ecosystem?
Great question. So, and this is a really interesting question you've asked. Max is not fundamentally an EV company. Max is fundamentally a mobility platform, right? What has just simply changed over the last, particularly over the last 2 years, is we've chosen to focus on electric vehicles because of a certain number of reasons that we've talked about before. Tomorrow, it could be nuclear-powered vehicles, right? So we didn't fundraise for EVs. We fundraised to make mobility accessible. So investors did not fundamentally invest in an EV company. They invested in a company that's solving the access to mobility problem, which is a problem that billions of Africans have. So if you look at it from that point of view, when we started focusing on EVs, Max was already a very large company, right? We had deployed, we had onboarded over 45,000 drivers historically.
That were already
using ICE engines.
They were already using motorcycles.
Exactly.
Basically financing their existing way of operation.
So investors are not like investing in an EV company in that sense.
Got it.
They're investing in a mobility platform that has figured out how to distribute, how to unlock access, and is now emphasizing electric vehicles as the vehicle technology that it's using.
And they can see the volume. I mean,
and they can see the volume.
Yeah, they could see the volume. They could see the user. They could see the pain point.
They can.
Yeah.
So, which is also, if you look at, there's a ton of EV startups out there that are struggling to fundraise because, an EV story alone is not compelling enough, right? As we talked about earlier, if you're in the manufacturing space as well, it's very capital intensive to finance vehicles or to manufacture and produce these vehicles, right? Not even just finance, to manufacture and produce these vehicles. Our model, Max is not, we're not a manufacturer, not an OEM, but we have partnerships with OEMs, and we leverage our relationships with OEMs to design the right kind of vehicles for our target market. Then we've also built a system where, and I may not go into all the nitty-gritty details, where we unlock assets at scale, deploy them, refinance them, and then from refinancing, the fund that comes in, we then used to unlock funding for the next set of vehicles. So it's like a system. And to your point earlier around, finance and all that, so we're talking about, whether founders have to be like finance experts. In the beginning, you don't have to be. If you're an asset-heavy industry, you have to be eventually.
Have to be, yeah.
Because 60% of what they're doing actually is financial engineering.
Yeah.
Right. Figuring out
planning, forecasting.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's
It's incredible. So there's the technology aspect, but there's also the financial engineering aspect where you're figuring out how do I unlock capital. In our case as well, and I'll mention this, we unlocked over $30 million worth of fleet financing that was driven by strategic OEM partnerships, not by us raising debt.
Okay, and I see from your T-shirt, Yamaha, I guess must have given
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
assets on credit, so
Exactly.
credit financing, where take the vehicles and then the
Drive
cash flow,
utilization,
the cash
cash
from
flows,
that, and then
and send it back to exactly.
Yeah.
So those are also some really, and a bunch of people are also doing that in the solar space now, where they are unlocking relationships with OEMs out of Asia who are giving them stock on credit and are getting paid back based off of cash flows from the deployment of those on CNI.
That's a very good point, guys. Is beyond debt financing, equity financing, one advantage that asset-heavy companies actually have is you're able to leverage on credit financing on the asset itself from strategic partnerships with OEMs. Yes, that you may not have access to for non-asset-heavy businesses.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So that opportunity is there. And OEMs, think about it, OEMs are always looking to sell.
They want to push volume.
They want to push volume,
That's really what they
So
care
the question
about.
they're always asking
They
themselves
can
is...
book revenue once that asset goes out the door. Yeah.
So we've done, using this model and this strategy, we've deployed, unlocked close to $40 million worth of funding. Right, that wasn't necessarily like cash funding, it was true access to assets.
You probably could also get much lower interest rate through that as well, too, right? Because they're not looking to maximize their interest rate. They're really just looking to push the product, push the brand, maybe even do some tests, send you some early models that they're considering, and getting feedback back into the business.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Fantastic. In terms of, and back to a point around financial engineering, right? Are there some things to keep in mind around timing, for example, or when is a company ready for debt financing? When to, how to think through blending different sources of capital. How do you make your investors patient, in your case, for quite a number of years before reaching profitability? I'm not even sure if you've had any exits, if you've had...
a few partial exits.
Okay, a few partial exits. So how do you begin to think about those different nuances for asset-heavy companies?
You have to get the right investors, right? You can't get an investor who wants to exit in 2 years, coming to an asset-heavy business that requires a lot of time to build that infrastructure, prove its model, scale efficiently.
You have to ask them upfront. You have to know where their head is at,
100%.
and understand their thesis.
And they have to understand what venture investing even is, right? Even beyond asset-heavy or not-heavy businesses, venture investing is they're taking a risk on the idea itself that actually works over time. And also when you bring in debt investors, debt investors are a higher ranking to equity, right? So they need to understand that. They also need to understand pivots as well, right? That sometimes you learn, you spend 2-3 years on a particular strategy or model or go-to-market strategy, and then you learn that, okay, there's a better way to do this, right? And when we say learn in the venture building space, we're talking a lot of money down the drain, right? But is it really down the drain, or is it that we've paid school fees, however you choose to look at it? But bottom line is that you have to bring on the right kind of investors who understand the scale of what you're trying to build. Because let's go back to the whole philosophy, and I think founders don't understand this, is a venture-backed company, ab initio, means that you're trying to completely transform how an industry works.
Right.
The reason people are backing you is they believe there's a chance that you build a massive company, right? You're not like playing it safe. It's either you go big or you go home, right? And if you put in a ton of effort and it doesn't work out and you go home,
And that's a different conversation. Yes,
right?
That's okay. Yeah.
But what investors don't ever want to see is trying to like stay in the middle.
Along. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't want to see that.
Yeah.
It's either we're going all the way to win,
Yeah.
or we're just, calling it a day and everybody moves on.
And also doing what it takes to do that. Because I know,
Absolutely.
at Max, you've gone through ups and downs.
Oh, yes,
right?
yeah.
It's been very public.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that made you feel, seeing all the headlines and the news. I assume at some point
It's part of the journey.
You just kind of get immune to it.
Yes, it's part of the
But
journey.
you've had those negative headlines, right? You've had staff cuts, you've had all kind of things, you must have 9 lives at this stage.
So, what people also call, on the outside people, what people like call negative news, we laugh about it in the venture space amongst founders as well, is, that for a startup, there's, okay, unless it's a scandal. If it's not a scandal, all news is good news, right?
Okay.
It's like politicians, the worst thing a politician can commit is not to be in the news, right? That's wrong. That's really wrong. You have to be in the news. That's the business you're in. So for startups as well, which in itself also explains whether you have what it takes. It's things that make people like fret, comfortable. You've done right sizing or staff cuts. Like companies do staff cuts all the time. I don't know, since the pandemic and now, I can't count the number of times Amazon, Facebook, Google have, and you'll hear crazy numbers like 5,000, 10,000.
At their size.
Even at their size, right? So it's not pretty, but what needs to be done. And I think founders also don't realize, or a lot of venture builders, particularly the early stage ones, don't recognize that when you take hard decisions, you actually signal to investors that you're serious. Right?
Do you think it also signals higher risk, possibly?
Okay.
From the outside in, do you think that investors could see that and say, maybe not the right time to dip my toes in?
Okay.
Or do you feel that, the really smart ones will ask deeper questions and will look beyond the headlines to understand, okay, what's driving this? And let's make sure we understand that the fundamentals of the business itself.
In high growth venture-backed companies, I would say 3 things, and I hope I can remember the 3 things, really drive, let's even pick staff costs, right? 3 things drive it. One is good old underperformance. Big companies can carry deadwood because, they're big, they have huge balance sheets, they have cash. Yeah, they can tolerate, inefficient 5, 10, 15% of the workforce. It's where it is, they don't care, right? Startups can do that, right? For startups and venture-backed companies, every single dollar needs to go into unlocking value, right? So staff cuts happen in tech startups, number one, because of their performance, right? They just move out people who are not. And remember, the bar is high for startups. You're looking for high energy, high productivity people. Startups don't hire normal people. Just want to chill and do your normal job, 9 to 5. Go work for, I was going to mention a bank, but let me not mention it. Go work for a bank. A traditional, big
telco
bank.
would not
a nice telco.
Not name any names.
Right. But you want to work at a startup that wants to disrupt an industry, right? That's not a 9 to 5 right there. So staff cuts is 1. 2 is strategy change. So if a company, for example, is executing on, let's say, an ICE strategy, and then they start focusing purely on EV strategy.
They may not need
the certain people who are focused purely on the ICE strategy, and then staff cuts happen, right? So that also happens. The third, which is probably the most common, is automation. So as a startup, remember, you're trying to execute very quickly. And I think I gave an example earlier where you have use like SMS messages to test. Once that works, it still takes time to fully build out your technology. But to capture growth, you kind of use a hybrid. Some technology, some people.
Input.
Over time, as you fully automate, so let's say, for example, you can say, okay, I want to do a go-to-market strategy to, hit XYZ scale. I'll hire, 70 people for that. You do that, you hit that scale. At that point in time, growth is what matters most. But at some point, of course, not just the company, but shareholders also say, okay, revenue is great, but what's your economics
bottom
like?
Line, yeah.
And what's the bottom line like? And then you optimize. You build a technology. What required 80 people now requires 3 people, right? And once that happens, what do? You have to transition people.
That's almost a scary world, isn't it? Right. Now, there's one element of that, which is just naturally, as a company grows and as automation becomes more prevalent, there'll be some resources that you no longer need.
Yeah.
But the world which Sam Altman described, where we would have, $1 billion company run by one person, how does that make you feel? It's almost, if you just think from a social, and you're in the social impact space, right? In this market where unemployment is high, job creation is difficult, automating that with AI seems almost socially irresponsible.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
It's not socially responsible, it's just a changing world order. What that means is, what AI is really disrupting is the middle. So you have, who gets disrupted is kind of like sort of professional, but also sort of routine at the same time, right? The folks are not getting disrupted are electricians are not getting disrupted, right? Plumbers are not getting disrupted, right?
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't fix the toilet, no matter how much you want it.
Hairdressers are not getting disrupted, right? So it's also making us to reevaluate what really is value.
But irrespective of whether we consider them valuable or not, it's a resource that was providing for a larger number of people. So whether we think we can replace that resource or not, just more from a social responsibility perspective, right? One may be in the best interest of the company to optimize their financials, their performance, etc. Is this in the best interest of society? I'm sort of moving away from the topic now.
Fair enough, yeah.
But if we think from a societal level to actually do this.
So I would say that private companies do what private companies do.
Yeah.
Governments do what governments do. And they have very different objectives.
Fair enough.
Private companies have a responsibility to build great products. Private companies have incentives to return value to their shareholders and deliver a great product to their customers. So if you also think about it this way, right, is let's say you want to take a ride from here to the airport as a user. Not Lagos, San Francisco. Which would you prefer? For Uber to send you a driver that has a 10% chance of getting into an accident?
Maybe drunk, maybe tired.
I mean, we are humans, so there's so many variables. Or to send you an AV, an autonomous vehicle that has a 0.01% chance of getting into an accident. As a customer, which would you pick? You would pick the autonomous vehicle. Question, so what is Uber's job? Is Uber's job to prioritize the customer's need? And you would pay half the price, right? Because now the driver is technology, right? It's not a human being, right? Because the thing is, so think about it this way. Companies also don't act in isolation. Companies act based off of what the market tells them to do. So
the customers, the market,
this was the customers actually want.
Right? It's cheaper, better experience. I don't have to have a conversation if I don't want to have a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to think about it holistically. So on the one hand, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Right? Think about it this way: is someone gets into a Waymo, right, an autonomous vehicle, right, to go to a press conference, right? And then they get to that press conference and they criticize AI. But hey,
he actually got you here.
He got you here, right? Yeah. You opted not to take the taxi that has a human being driving it, right? Because it saves you money and it's safer. And then, do you then turn around and also criticize the company for? So what I'm saying anyway is that companies are incentivized, to do certain things, and they have to do that, right? But governments have a different incentive. Governments are incentivized to make sure everyone is productively engaged.
Yeah, that they can either retrain those people.
Absolutely. Open up new industries, etc. Retool, reskill people. And we've seen this over, multiple phases of human evolution, right? Or technology evolution from, agrarian culture to the industrial revolution. We completely changed how everything works, right? So factory jobs. So new jobs will come up. I think some people say stuff like AI is just going to take out all jobs. No. That's not going to happen. AI is going to unlock new opportunities. So what then needs to happen is society then needs to move in that direction, and folks need to then build skills that are compatible with the new world order that we're moving into, rather than holding on to legacy skills that are being disrupted.
And you have to trust your government to effectively do that.
You really shouldn't wait for your government, if I'm being honest.
You really shouldn't trust your government.
You shouldn't wait for your government.
You shouldn't wait for your government to do that. Yeah. So you should take the steps, except that you're able to do that when you have access to the right resources. That's not always easy to do. So not to divert too much from the core of our conversation, but just to make the point that, in some cases, people don't always have the option to retool themselves on their own, right? And there is a role for government, for public office, for public policy to play in actually shaping and moving us in that direction.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you look at this from an economic system standpoint, right, and if you allow me to maybe bring that in as well, is, of course, over the last, 300-400 years, we've seen experiments with different socio-economic systems, communism, socialism, feudalism, which is the really old one, and then now, capitalism, and different shades of capitalism. Capitalism has been really powerful in terms of accelerating innovation, giving people opportunity to, create private wealth, and having, legal systems to protect all of that, accelerating innovation, etc. It's really worked well in that case. But every system has its own weakness, right? It's always trade-offs. One of the key weaknesses of capitalism is the fact that it's capital itself. So once you have access to capital, then you have massive leverage, right? And people who don't have leverage, right?
The world shouldn't be that way. So maybe that's the way the world is, but that's not the world that we want.
It is
right?
the weakness of capitalism.
Yes.
Right?
Okay,
so
fair enough.
Which is why a lot of countries have sort of like, you have something like a social democracy, or some sort of like welfare type systems being built into being like merged with like capitalist policies, sort of like create a much more balanced society. But then now this is where AI comes in, and you can see this even in the technology industry today now, right? What AI simply just does is it provides massive leverage to people that have massive capital. So what then happens is, inequality accelerates more than ever before. And wealth becomes even more concentrated.
And we're seeing that.
Oh, I mean, no, we're just in the beginning of that. It's going to get a lot worse than it is right now. Which then is why, of course, even a lot of the AI proponents talk about the fact that, our governments really now need to step in and understand exactly what's going on. Because if you hear some of the things that I think Elon says, it's crazy stuff around people shouldn't have to work for money anymore at some point, right? People should just be guaranteed a salary because you don't really need them to work, right? Which is kind of crazy, but it's looking like that's where things are headed with the massive amounts of disruptions that might happen to all sorts of career paths today. There are questions around whether, even for countries that are serious, can we retool the workforce quickly enough to unlock new job opportunities and provide the required training to shift tens of millions of people away from sectors that have been disrupted by AI? I mean, those are the real questions that are being asked. But I think the key point around AI is the fact that it provides the sort of leverage that the world has never seen before to folks who already hold massive amounts of capital. Yes.
Okay, so let's shift back very quickly and let's wrap up with just talking about, Max, your path to profitability.
Correct.
What that journey has looked like. And either tips that you want to give our audience on what to keep in mind as capital intensive companies think about timing to profitability, hacks to keep in mind, and just things that you may have picked up along the way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to sort of like really summarize this. I would say if there's one word that really describes or captures what it means to achieve profitability as a startup, that one word is discipline. Now, discipline cuts across. Discipline in your product strategy, discipline in accountability, discipline in things like financial reporting and audit, right? Discipline in management as well, right? And even discipline with things like expansion. So I actually want to highlight something that a lot of people may not pay attention to, especially in this part of the world. So if you think about Nigeria, right, and the wider African environment, let me pick an example. If you look at estates around our cities, if you go into people's homes and houses, they're very well built, very well taken care of, right? The moment you drive outside of, even in places like Ikoyi and Lekki, you see that a lot. Once you get outside of someone's house to something that's shared, like a street is shared, right? It's disastrous.
Right.
It's sewage. It's garbage, right? So what that tells you, that tells you something very interesting is, at the individual level, we're disciplined. We take care of our own things. But at the community level, things just go bad. Now, let me explain why this is relevant for building a company. When you're building a company, it's also a community. It's like a community. So people can be very proficient individually, but collectively as a team or as an organization, right, we can be quite inefficient and ineffective. Now, if you think about the fact that at the society level, we struggle to achieve success collectively as a community, right?
That's our society.
Our society in Nigeria and many parts of Africa. What that then tells you is when you're trying to build a company, you are trying to do something that is countercultural because the company requires discipline at the community level.
I would push back a little bit.
Sure.
This discussion can go on for hours.
Yes,
and I know you need to be somewhere else. But I will push back saying that it's not countercultural to think about the society as a whole. I think something has broken in the way that we brought. But if you look back to village life, communal life, it's very much thinking about the society. You don't always think about your own home. If you think back to even raising kids, right? Your neighbor can spank your child.
How long ago?
10, 15 years ago. So my point is something, has shifted. Something has broken, but it's not endemic to the way that we are. It's not countercultural because we've seen in our evolution as a culture where we placed higher priority on the community over the individual. That's shifting. Why shifting will take us hours to unpack, which we don't have today. We'll have to pick it up some other time, over drinks or over Nkwobi or whatever else that you prefer. But just to make that point.
100%. So when I also say culture, what I mean is culture today. So, and you're absolutely spot on.
But culture is not today. Our culture is what has, it's
evolved.
It's evolved. It's built over generations. Our culture today, like our culture even as a people is not to throw garbage out. That's not our culture. That's what we do. But it's not our culture. And I refuse to accept it as our culture.
So, I mean, we can debate all of this. Maybe I should clarify when I use that word. Fundamentally, when I use the word culture,
behavior, maybe
it's behavior. Really.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, cultural behavior, I think is the same, but it's okay to sort of distinguish. What I mean is how we behave today, right, as a society, then also, of course, obviously gets into how we run companies. So you then find that as a founder, and we're talking about profitability, is you have to recognize that you are actually you're in a battle. Because, and we all know, right, it's easier to destroy than to build.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very easy
Whatever
to
it
destroy.
is, trust, organizations, systems.
So when you, and now we're talking about when you operate within the context of an asset-heavy business, which means there's a lot of human interaction that's going on.
Right.
When you don't have the right controls in place, when you don't have the right people in your team, right? Even if you're creating a lot of value, I mean, in venture building, we talk about value creation and value capture. You can be creating so much value and be capturing very little. You're like a charity. How do you make sure that you're not only creating value, but you're capturing a lot of it?
Capturing as well.
It's discipline. It's accountability. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of allow me to use the word culture.
Okay.
And maybe I'll talk about my own tribe, right?
Okay.
That nobody will accuse me of discrimination if I do that. I'm Yoruba, right?
Okay.
And one of our like cultural things that Yoruba people say is, I don't want to be the one that destroyed someone else's destiny. Like, which
so you
means
won't fire a bad person.
so I won't fire. I will not
okay.
expose a corrupt person. I can see someone is doing something that can destroy the organization. But if I now say that if I rat the person out, right,
That's
then
on me,
that's on
destroying
me.
his or her
right?
destiny. Yeah.
Forgetting that this person, if they have their way and they continue what they're doing,
It will destroy
they'll
the
destroy
company itself. and
Now,
then it
which goes
actually-
back to the society is where we all turn a blind eye and say, and follow even some quote unquote aspects of our culture of not trying to destroy one person because they don't have another job, they're going to be hungry, they have children, what's going to happen to their children if I expose them?
This is off the record, but
Yeah.
I'll blame religion over that versus culture. I'll blame the fact that you're afraid that you're doing something bad and it may come back to hurt you, right? But that's a whole different thing.
But anyway, the bottom line is that there's a lot of our cultural dynamics.
Yeah.
And people say stuff like, okay, who you are at home is different from who you are at work. No, it's not true, right? People bring who they are to the workplace. And therefore, as an organization or as a startup that's trying to become profitable, accountability is important. And what is accountability? Accountability means when people do what is right, they get compensated for what is right. When people do what is wrong, they also get the right response to what is wrong.
There are consequences to bad behavior.
And there must be consequences. It's consequence management. As a founder, especially for technology founders, you start out with a vision of the world of people are inherently good. Let's just help people. Let's solve problems. But after a while, you kind of realize that wow, everybody's not nice, right? If we're going to be profitable, we have to build. First and foremost, we have to figure out how to build a profitable model.
Right.
But a profitable model itself doesn't guarantee success.
Correct. If the
With
actors
the context,
within
if
that
the actors,
model,
and the actors come across, your customers.
Yeah.
So you're constantly making sure your customers are not circumventing your system and your
your
processes.
controls, yeah.
But also you're also making sure, especially if you have a large operations team, to make sure that your operations team as well isn't compromising what's going on, right? And these are not like innovation things. This is like good old boring compliance, audits, performance management, all the stuff that a lot of us founders ran away from to say, let me just go build my own company, right?
Yeah.
You find that you still have to do the boring stuff. Without the boring stuff, you never become profitable. And so the journey to profitability for us has, because a lot of people will think product strategy. It's 30% of it. The remaining 70% is discipline. And within discipline is accountability, understanding cultural limitations and challenges and how to deal with that without invalidating people's culture, but also recognizing that there's certain aspects of our culture or religion or whatever it is, or how we practice it, that has significant implications for the success of a company, right? And those are a lot of these intangibles. If you don't figure them out, you will not become profitable.
And you think it's unique to our market? You think that those limitations, culture, etc., don't exist outside?
It is not a... Okay, and I really like this question, and I really want to distinguish and provide a very clear answer. More advanced societies don't have this problem that we have here because they have systems that check the behavior. Not because there are people who don't have the tendencies.
The fraud issue in Minnesota.
So
now I don't want to name the group of people that have been blamed for that.
Let's put it this way: let's not even go at the highest level.
Yeah.
If you default on a loan in an advanced economy, it goes into your credit report and your credit score. You can't get the loan again. There are
consequences to that bad.
There is a real consequence.
So it's not inherent to the culture.
It's not about the culture. It's the system.
It's the system in place to be sure that you don't.
So that's the point.
Yes.
So
that I agree with.
In environments where the systems are much more nascent, right, where people can get away with bad behavior consistently at scale,
they will, irrespective of their culture.
So this is not really about like whether it's African culture or not. No.
Yeah.
It's because in if there are strong systems in Nigeria today,
People
behavior will
behave
change.
properly.
Behavior will absolutely change.
You see that, right? You see someone work for company A.
Exactly.
They behave in a particular way.
Yes.
They switch to company B, and they're like, okay, this place I can see.
Which then takes me to the point that around also venture building and how founders should think about markets and expansion is. Mark Anderson says an average entrepreneur in a great market will far outperform an elite entrepreneur in a mediocre market. So,
and he's defining markets as
like country.
A place, country.
Oh yeah, yes,
okay.
exactly. A country.
Okay.
So,
let's repeat that for the audience.
Okay.
An average entrepreneur in a great market would outperform an excellent entrepreneur in a mediocre market.
Yes.
So why are we building here? What are we doing?
It's a fantastic question. It also means then that if you are building in a place like this and you have the opportunity to build somewhere else.
Go somewhere else.
Or go somewhere else. Then it means that they are, when I say here, it doesn't mean Nigeria, wherever you are.
Yes.
Right? If you know that you are building in a market that is harder and you have the opportunity to build in a market that is easier, but you stay to continue to build in a market that is harder, it then means that it is beyond the economic opportunity. That there is another reason why you're doing it. There's vested interest. It's my city, it's my country. And that is perfectly legitimate.
Parties.
Whatever it is.
The weather is hot.
Fair enough. But the reality is, and I mean, in my case, I didn't think enough about it at the beginning. Is that it's back to the point around infrastructure too, right? Is if you're building in a market where a lot of the protective systems and infrastructure that's needed for you to easily build are not there, the only option you have to stay in that market is to actually build it yourself. So, for example, we had to build our own credit decisioning engine. We had to build our own contract enforcement engine that a company that does what we do in the US has no business doing.
So if you were to put the same level of effort that you've put into Max, if you
Decacon in the US,
you would we're not even be having this conversation, right? I would not even be able to reach you.
Well,
we'll be seeing you in the online, as we say. But point taken. Yeah.
So, but back to the point around profitability is getting to profitability then means recognizing that there's a lot of infrastructure. I mean, I use the word infrastructure broadly.
Broadly, yeah.
Not just like roads on bridges. I mean, credit infrastructure,
Yeah.
law enforcement infrastructure.
Yeah.
If someone
Legal
does something wrong, for example, will the court and the justice system naturally take its course?
And do it quickly.
And
not take 10 years to reach a decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you think about all of this holistically, where there are gaps, for you to hit profitability, you have to then build in your own kind of infrastructure to compensate for those wider societal infrastructure gaps. And that's not trivial.
All said and done, I prepare my small chops here. Thank you so much, Tayo. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us at Periscope. Guys, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed the conversation and look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thank you very much. Please follow us on our social media channels at Instagram at periscope.podcast, on TikTok at periscope.podcast, on Twitter at perismedia, and on YouTube at periscope.podcast. You can also see our content on our WhatsApp channel if you search for Periscope, as well as on our LinkedIn business channel. If you have any questions whatsoever, please go to our website and scroll to the bottom to the Slido page and enter any questions that you may have that you want us to address. You can also leave feedback, comments, and compliments for us. Thank you very much for listening.